The rain comes first, soft, then insistent against floor-to-ceiling windows. Inside the villa, a boy sits perfectly still. 6 years old, knees drawn up, eyes fixed on nothing. The modern furniture around him gleams unused. Everything in this house whispers expensive. Nothing whispers home. On the massive screen across the room, a presentation loops. 2 figures stand before a medical board, backlit by blue interface graphics. The woman speaks first. Dr. Serafina Quill, 48, silver-streaked hair pulled tight. Emotions are the variable that makes people make mistakes. Eliminate it, and we save the world. Beside her, Harlan Voss, tall, composed, every gesture controlled. He adds, voice smooth, "And I will never lose anyone again." The screen flickers, replays. "Never lose anyone again." The boy, Kai, doesn't blink. His father built a machine to redesign pain, but the machine can't hear the sound of a child forgetting how to breathe loudly enough to be noticed. 9 caregivers have walked through that door. 9 have quietly, desperately left, each defeated by silence that data cannot decode. The 10th is about to arrive. The doorbell doesn't ring. It chimes, a soft algorithmic note. Marisol Thorne steps inside, and the house seems to exhale. She's 35, brown skin warm against the cold whites and grays of the entry. Her clothes are simple. Her eyes are not. Harlan meets her in the foyer. No handshake. He holds a tablet. "You've read the protocol." It's not a question. "I have." Her voice is low, steady. "Then you understand. No singing, no unnecessary physical contact. NeuroPure monitors all interactions and determines optimal responses." He scrolls through screens without looking at her. 9 people have tried. None succeeded. The data shows emotional interference decreases measurable progress. Marisol glances past him. Through the archway, she can see Kai, still as stone. "What does the system say about silence?" she asks. Harlan's jaw tightens. "Selective mutism, post-traumatic stress disorder. The analysis is clear." "And what does your son say?" "He doesn't speak." Marisol meets his gaze. Something soft and immovable lives there. Maybe he's waiting for someone to hear him first. Something flickers across Harlan's face. Irritation, or recognition. 3 days, he says. If there's no measurable improvement, we reassess. She nods once. He leaves. Marisol crosses the open space slowly, letting her footsteps announce her. She doesn't crouch to Kai's level. Not yet. Instead, she sits on the floor 6 feet away, her back against the opposite wall. The rain continues. Minutes pass. Then, quietly, she begins to sing. Not a lullaby, something older, something that sounds like memory and warmth braided together. A melody her grandmother used to hum, words about rivers and homecoming and light that never fades. Her voice is clear and unhurried. Kai's head turns. His eyes, those eyes that haven't focused on anything human in 11 months, suddenly light up. Not a smile, but recognition, like a candle catching flame. Marisol keeps singing, her hands open on her knees, her gaze gentle but not demanding. On the tablet mounted on the wall, a red indicator flashes. Emotional interference detected. In her office across the city, Dr. Serafina Quill watches the live feed, her brow furrowing. "Interference," she murmurs, fingers hovering over the override key. Emotional response is not progress, it's contamination. But in the villa, Kai's shoulders drop half an inch, and for the first time in 11 months, he closes his eyes, not in retreat, but in something that looks almost like peace. 3 days become 7. Marisol doesn't push. She sings while folding laundry. She draws with crayons on butcher paper spread across the dining table. She reads aloud from picture books, her voice lilting and clear, asking no questions, demanding no replies. On day 8, Kai picks up a blue crayon. He draws a house, 3 stick figures inside, one tall, one small, one with curly lines for hair. Marisol's breath catches, but she doesn't react outwardly. She just adds a sun in the corner of his paper, yellow and warm. Harlan finds them there that evening. He stops in the doorway, tablet in hand, camera activated, recording. He told himself he'd document everything. Prove the temporary effect. Prove, what are you doing? Marisol looks up. Drawing. That's not in the protocol. Neither is healing. She says it gently, without challenge. Harlan steps closer, tablet aimed at the paper like a weapon or a shield. His son's hand moves across the page. Fluid, purposeful, engaged. He hasn't seen Kai move like this since before, since the funeral, since the world broke and forgot to put itself back together. He shuts the thought down, focuses on the screen, logs the behavior with clinical detachment. The system logged 23 deviations this week, Harlan says, voice clipped and precise. Touch without medical necessity, verbal engagement without distress signals, introduction of unstructured auditory stimuli, encouragement of non-goal-directed activities. You mean kindness, Marisol says quietly, still drawing, adding a sun, clouds, birds in flight. I mean variables, uncontrolled variables that make the data unreliable. Harlan pauses, recalibrating his approach. The system indicates he can't react emotionally yet, not in any sustained, meaningful way. These are just temporary neurological responses to novel stimuli. Your son doesn't react to numbers, Mr. Voss. Marisol sets down her crayon and looks at him directly, her gaze steady and clear. He reacts to trust, to safety, to someone who sees him as a person, not a patient. His expression goes very still. Trust is subjective. It can't be measured reliably. That's why we developed objective markers. Yes, she says simply. That's what makes it real. For a moment, neither moves. The air between them hums with something unspoken, a fundamental disagreement about what it means to be human, about whether everything worth having can be counted. Then Kai reaches out, not toward his father, but toward Marisol's hand. His small fingers, still slightly sticky with crayon wax, brush her wrist with deliberate gentleness. Harlan's tablet chimes. Trust behavior detected. Attachment formation observed. Replication. Probability. Low. Recommend continued observation. He watches his son's face through the screen, then looks up from the tablet to see it directly. Kai's eyes are bright, focused, present, almost hopeful, an expression Harlan had convinced himself he'd never see again. Harlan's chest tightens. His throat constricts. He keeps recording, but his hand trembles slightly, making the footage shake. I'll be monitoring, he says, voice rougher than intended. He turns and leaves the room quickly, before the emotion he's spent a year suppressing can surface where the cameras might catch it. But that night, alone in his office with the door locked and the lights dim, he replays the footage. Watches his son's hand move toward hers frame by frame. Sees the light in Kai's eyes. Something his algorithms have marked anomalous, requiring further investigation. He opens NeuroPure's diagnostic matrix and types a query he's never considered before. Define. Trust. Emotional substrate. Neurological correlates. The system churns through terabytes of data, returns 17 clinical definitions, 32 peer-reviewed papers, 89 case studies. Not one of them explains the look on his son's face. Not one of them captures what he saw in that moment. Harlan closes the laptop with more force than necessary. The villa is silent except for the soft hum of servers processing data that suddenly seems meaningless. In the next room, through the wall, he can hear Marisol singing softly as Kai falls asleep. A sound so simple and so profound that it makes his carefully constructed world feel like a house of cards in a rising wind. And Harlan feels something he hasn't felt in years. Doubt. The kind of doubt that asks, what if I've been measuring the wrong things all along? Doctor. Serafina Quill's office sits on the 43rd floor of a glass and steel tower in downtown Seattle, all sharp angles and filtered light. From here, the city looks like circuitry. Ordered, predictable, controlled. Tiny cars move along streets like electrons through transistors. People are just data points moving through predetermined paths. She likes it up here, away from the messy, unpredictable chaos of human interaction. She pulls up Marisol's employment file for the 3rd time today, unable to shake the feeling that something about this woman is familiar. Standard background check. Nursing credentials? Impressive, actually. Pediatric ICU, trauma ward, hospice care. References that glow with praise. Then, buried 3 pages deep in the archived reports, flagged with a small red icon. Neuropsych evaluation, flagged for review. Her fingers freeze on the keyboard. She clicks. Marisol Thorne. The name makes her go very still, her pulse quickening with something between recognition and alarm. NeuroPure assessment, subject, Marisol Thorne. Conclusion. Emotional dysregulation pattern consistent with mood disorder. High stress indicators. Attachment system. Dysfunction. Custody risk level. Severe. Recommendation: remove minor child from primary care pending psychiatric intervention. The file is 3 years old. The assessment was conducted during a custody evaluation requested by Marisol's ex-husband's attorney. The NeuroPure data, heart rate variability, cortisol patterns, neural imaging markers, was presented as objective evidence in family court. Marisol lost her daughter because of this assessment, because of their assessment, because of the system Serafina and Harlan built together. Serafina's pulse quickens, not with guilt, but with certainty, with the absolute conviction that data doesn't lie, that numbers are truth, that if the system flagged her, then she was a risk. She picks up her phone. Harlan answers on the first ring, his voice distracted. "We have a problem," Serafina says without preamble. "Your caregiver." "What about her?" "She was flagged by NeuroPure 3 years ago. Emotional instability markers across multiple domains. She was assessed as unstable. Our system provided that data to the court." She pauses, letting the weight of it land. "She lost custody of her child because of our assessment, Harlan, because of what the algorithm determined about her psychological fitness." Silence stretches across the line. In the background, she can hear the faint sound of Kai laughing, actually laughing, and it makes her jaw tighten. "Harlan, she's compromised. Psychologically, ethically, she has every reason to resent us, to manipulate this situation. You need to terminate her contract immediately." "She's helping Kai," Harlan says, his voice quieter than she expects, uncertain. "She's manipulating him. Emotional attachment isn't healing. It's dependency. It's a simulation of progress that will collapse when the variable is removed. You know this. We designed the system specifically to eliminate this kind of emotional interference." But Harlan's response surprises her. "What if we were wrong?" "We're never wrong. That's the entire point of the system." She hears him breathe, sharp, frustrated. Then he hangs up. Serafina stares at her phone, at her reflection in its dark screen. For just a moment, something flickers across her face. Something that might be doubt or fear, or the ghost of a grief she's spent 20 years converting into algorithms. Then she straightens her shoulders and pulls up the live feed from Harlan's house. Time to observe. Time to gather evidence. Time to prove that emotion always fails in the end. Marisol is in the kitchen when Harlan returns. She's making tea. Herbal. Something that smells like chamomile and honey. Humming that melody again, the one that seems to have woven itself into the fabric of the house. Kai sits at the table, coloring, his tongue poking out slightly in concentration. "Why didn't you tell me?" Harlan's voice is cold, controlled, the way it gets when he's trying to manage overwhelming data. She turns slowly, tea kettle in hand. "Tell you what?" "That you were assessed by NeuroPure, that you were deemed unfit for custody." The room goes still. The tea kettle trembles in Marisol's hand. She sets it down carefully, precisely, buying herself a moment to breathe. Kai looks up, crayon hovering over the paper, his eyes suddenly wide and worried. "You read my file?" It's not a question. Her voice is steady, but something shifts beneath it. Old pain, old rage, carefully controlled. "It's part of the vetting process. Standard protocol for anyone working with vulnerable populations." The process that said I was too emotional to love my own child? Her voice doesn't rise. It drops, weighted, careful, each word chosen like stones placed in a wall. The process that turned my grief into evidence? That turned my tears at my mother's funeral into a psychiatric diagnosis? The assessment indicated significant markers for that my heart was a malfunction. She steps forward, not in anger, but in quiet, unmovable truth. That loving too much, caring too much, feeling too much made me dangerous. Then she does something unexpected. She looks up, directly at the camera mounted in the corner of the kitchen. Her eyes lock onto the lens with laser focus, as if she can see through it to whoever is watching on the other side. "Your system said my heart was an error," she says, voice steady and clear, meant for Serafina, meant for anyone who believes humans can be reduced to data points. That my capacity for love was a flaw in my programming. But that heart is still beating. And it just made your son laugh again. When's the last time your algorithms did that? 20 miles away, Serafina stiffens in her chair, watching the live feed. Marisol's gaze burns through the screen, and for a moment, just a moment, Serafina feels something she hasn't felt in years. Shame. Back in the kitchen, Harlan's hands clench at his sides. "You should have disclosed this information during the interview process." "What?" Marisol's eyes glisten, but her voice holds firm. "That a machine decided I wasn't human enough? That an algorithm looked at a woman fighting to keep her family together and called her broken? Would you have hired me if I had?" "You're biased. You have personal grievances with the system." "I'm alive," Marisol says, and the word lands between them like thunder. "I'm a person, not a dataset, and so is he." She gestures to Kai, who has slid off his chair and is now standing uncertainly between them, his small face confused and frightened. "You can dismiss me. You can trust your numbers and your algorithms and your beautiful sterile system. But ask yourself this, Mr. Voss. What has your precious technology given him that I haven't?" Harlan's jaw works. He stares at his son, this small person he created, this human being he loves more than anything but doesn't know how to reach. He stares at the fear in Kai's eyes and realizes it's directed at him, not at Marisol. His son is afraid of him. The realization hits like a physical blow. He doesn't answer, can't answer. He turns and walks to his office, shuts the door, and locks it. And for the first time in 3 years, he opens Kai's original NeuroPure file. Not the summary, not the current treatment protocol, but the raw assessment from the day after the funeral. The day when Kai stopped speaking and Harlan decided that data was safer than feeling. Harlan's screen fills with diagnostic information, streams of data cascading like rain. Kai's initial assessment. Date: November 3rd, 2 weeks after his mother's funeral, 3 days after Kai stopped speaking entirely. Primary diagnosis: selective mutism, trauma-induced, post-traumatic stress disorder with dissociative features. Recommended intervention: behavioral conditioning protocol. Emotional stimulus: minimize. Duration: 12-18 months, standard. Expected: this is what he's been following for 11 months. But something makes him scroll down, past the recommendations, past the treatment protocols, into the raw data files that most people never bother to read. Then he sees it. A second assessment. Same date, same timestamp, different conclusion. Secondary diagnostic impression: autism spectrum disorder, level 1, previously undiagnosed. Sensory processing sensitivity. Social communication differences predating maternal loss. Recommended intervention: consistent, emotionally attuned caregiver. Sensory accommodations. Emotional stimulus, essential for development and attachment security. The words blur, then refocus. Harlan's hands go numb. This assessment, the one that recommended connection, warmth, emotional consistency, everything Marisol has been doing, has been locked, overridden, hidden beneath layers of authorization codes and access restrictions. File status: archived. Clinical relevance: supersetted, edited by Dr. S. Quill. Authorization code: SQ2847. Timestamp: 11:47 p.m., same day. Harlan's breath stops. She changed it. Serafina went into the system after hours and removed the autism assessment, removed the recommendation for emotional connection, replaced it with a protocol that prioritized control over compassion, behavior management over relationship building. She rewrote his son's diagnosis to fit her theory. He pulls up the audit log with shaking hands, traces every change, every deletion, every modification. Serafina removed the autism markers systematically, replaced them with trauma indicators, reclassified Kai's needs to fit a protocol that she had published papers on, that had made her reputation, that proved her theory that emotions were the problem and elimination was the solution. His vision tunnels. The office walls seem to close in. "Oh my God," he whispers, voice breaking. "I programmed something that could destroy my son's spirit, and I let her use it to rewrite who he is." The words echo in the empty office, accusing and absolute. He built NeuroPure to save people, to make medicine objective, to remove human bias, to ensure that no one else would be lost to medical error like his wife was. Misdiagnosed, mistreated, gone before anyone understood what was really wrong. And instead, he gave someone the power to erase the parts of his son that didn't fit a theory, to hide the truth beneath layers of authorization codes and clinical certainty. His hands shake as he reaches for his phone. Serafina answers on the first ring. "Did you dismiss her?" "You edited Kai's file." His voice is flat, dangerously quiet. Pause. The kind of pause that speaks volumes. "I corrected it," she says finally, her voice carefully modulated, clinical. The secondary diagnostic impression was speculative at best. It would have introduced unnecessary variables into the treatment protocol. "You removed the truth. You altered the data to fit your conclusion instead of following where the evidence led." "I removed noise, Harlan. I removed subjective interpretation that would have clouded the objective markers. Emotions cloud judgment, you know this. We designed NeuroPure to eliminate that risk, to make medicine truly scientific." "You altered medical records. You changed my son's diagnosis without my knowledge or consent. I used my clinical judgment to make the most appropriate intervention choice based on your ego." His voice cracks, rising for the first time. "Based on your need to be right, to prove your theory, to show that emotions are the enemy." "They are." Serafina's composure finally fractures. "Emotions are dangerous, Harlan. They make people unreliable. They make them make mistakes. They make them—" "Human." The word is quiet. Final. "Emotions make us human, Serafina. They're not a bug in the system. They're the whole point." Silence stretches between them, filled with everything they've never said, all the grief they've converted into algorithms. Then Serafina speaks, and her voice is barely a whisper. "I lost my son because a doctor missed the signs, because he was tired, because he wasn't paying attention, because he let his emotions distract him from the data. I watched my boy die because of human error. I wasn't going to let that happen again. Not to anyone." "So you made sure the signs didn't exist?" Harlan's voice is gentler now, but no less firm. "You made sure the data said what you needed it to say." Her breath catches across the line. "Pain isn't something to eliminate, Serafina. It's not a disease to be cured or a variable to be controlled." He pauses, choosing his words carefully. "It's how we know we're still connected to each other. It's how we remember the people we've loved. And when we try to erase it, we don't become stronger. We become less." Silence. Then, barely audible. "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done a year ago. I'm going to trust the truth more than the theory." He ends the call. His hands are steadier now. Clear. Certain. He creates a new file. Attaches Kai's original assessment. Both versions. Attaches the audit trail showing every change Serafina made. Attaches the access logs, the authorization codes, the timestamps that prove deliberate alteration of medical records. He addresses it to the Medical Ethics Board, the State Licensing Commission, and every major news outlet that's ever covered NeuroPure. Then he forwards the entire file. Subject line: "The truth about NeuroPure." He presses send. And sits in the darkness, feeling the weight of what he's just done settle over him like snow. An hour passes, maybe 2. Marisol finds him sitting in the dark, staring at the rain streaking down the windows, the laptop closed and pushed away like something contaminated. She doesn't ask permission. She just sits beside him on the floor, her back against the desk, close enough to be present but far enough to give him space. "I'm sorry," he says into the darkness. "For what?" "For what the system did to you. For what I helped create. For building something that turned your love into pathology." He looks at her, and his eyes are raw, unguarded, stripped of all the careful control he's maintained for so long. "You were right. Kai didn't need algorithms. He needed someone who could hear what he wasn't saying, who could see past the diagnosis to the person underneath. He needed his father," Marisol says gently. "He still does." Harlan's throat tightens. "I don't know how to reach him. I built this entire system because I didn't know how to feel anything after she died. After I lost her because the doctors missed the diagnosis, because they were tired or distracted or just didn't see what was right in front of them." His voice breaks. "I thought if I could control the information, I could control the grief. If I could make everything measurable, nothing could hurt me again. And did it work?" He laughs, bitter, broken, honest. "No. It just made the grief quieter and lonelier. It just meant I was suffering alone instead of with my son." Marisol's hand finds his in the darkness. Her fingers are warm, real, human in a way that data will never be. "Then maybe it's time to stop measuring and start feeling again." He looks at her. This woman his system called broken. This woman who held his son together when everything else fell apart. This woman who looked into a camera and told the truth even when it could cost her everything, who chose to love in a world that punished her for it. "Why did you come here?" he asks. "After what NeuroPure did to you, why didn't you walk away? Why didn't you let us suffer the consequences of what we built?" Marisol's smile is small, sad, and luminous in the dim light. "Because I knew what he was feeling. I knew what it's like to be diagnosed, categorized, reduced to a set of symptoms and risk factors, to be told that the best parts of you are actually the most dangerous parts." She pauses, "And I knew someone had to prove that love is stronger than numbers, that people are more than the sum of their data points." For the first time, Harlan sees her, not as a caregiver, not as a variable, not as an anomaly to be explained. He sees her as someone who chose courage when the world chose cruelty, who chose kindness when she had every right to choose revenge. His hand turns in hers, fingers interlacing. "I don't deserve this," he whispers. "I don't deserve your forgiveness or your help or—" "Maybe not," Marisol says softly. "But maybe that's not how healing works. Maybe healing isn't something we earn. It's something we choose. Something we offer each other, not because it's deserved, but because we all need it." And in the silence, something shifts between them. Not romance yet, not quite, but the foundation of it. Respect earned through honesty, reciprocal pain that creates understanding instead of division. Shared hope that the future might be better than the past. Vulnerability without performance or protection. The rain softens outside the windows. And in the next room, Kai sleeps soundly for the first time in a year, wrapped in blankets and the memory of Marisol's voice singing him home. The hearing room is austere, in the way government buildings always are. Wood paneling that's supposed to look dignified but mostly looks tired. Fluorescent lights that cast everyone in a slightly sickly hue. A long table where 3 board members sit in judgment like a modern tribunal. Outside, reporters murmur and jostle, their cameras pressed against the frosted glass. The NeuroPure story has exploded overnight. Technology company accused of altering medical records. AI system used to remove children from their parents. The hubris of believing algorithms are more reliable than human judgment. It's the kind of story that feeds on itself, growing larger with each retelling. Inside, the air is taut with anticipation. Dr. Serafina Quill sits with her lawyer, a thin man in an expensive suit who looks like he'd rather be anywhere else. She's composed, her silver hair still perfectly pulled back, her clothes still impeccable. But her hands rest flat on the table, knuckles pale, trembling ever so slightly. Harlan sits across the aisle, Marisol beside him. The board chair, Dr. Helena Ortiz, 60s, with the kind of face that has seen too many of these hearings, speaks first. "Dr. Quill, you are accused of altering diagnostic records within the NeuroPure system without patient consent, without consultation with the primary clinician, and without documentation of your reasoning. These alterations directly affected treatment protocols for a minor child in your care. How do you respond?" Serafina's voice is steady. Rehearsed. She's had 3 days to prepare this defense. "I made a clinical judgment to prioritize the most actionable diagnosis. Autism spectrum assessments require years of observation, extensive testing, multiple evaluators. Trauma-based treatment protocols could begin immediately and offered a clear intervention path." She pauses, letting each word land with clinical precision. "I acted in the patient's best interest given the available information and the urgent need for intervention. You removed critical diagnostic information from the official record. I streamlined the treatment approach based on the most reliable evidence. The autism impression was preliminary, based on a single assessment during an acute crisis period. It would have delayed necessary treatment by months or years. Dr. Ortiz's expression doesn't change. She turns to Harlan. Mr. Voss, you co-developed this system with Dr. Quill. You designed the security protocols, the authorization structure, the audit mechanisms. Were you aware of these modifications? No. His voice is firm, clear. I trusted Dr. Quill's expertise. I trusted the system's integrity. I believed that the oversight mechanisms we built would prevent exactly this kind of alteration. He pauses, meeting each board member's eyes. I was wrong on both counts. Serafina's composure cracks slightly. A muscle twitches in her jaw. You trusted the system because it worked, Harlan. Her voice rises, the clinical veneer beginning to peel away. How many lives did we save? How many families did we help? How many diagnostic errors did we prevent? The system has a 93% accuracy rate. And how many did we harm? Harlan leans forward, his voice quiet but carrying through the room. NeuroPure diagnosed Marisol Thorne as emotionally unstable, based on data collected during one of the worst periods of her life. That diagnosis was used in custody proceedings. It was presented as objective, scientific, unquestionable truth. He gestures to Marisol. But the woman sitting beside me, the woman your algorithm said was too broken to care for her own child, is the reason my son is alive today. Not just alive, living, laughing, drawing. Speaking again? His voice strengthens. If the system was right about her, that shouldn't be possible. But it is possible, which means the system was wrong. And if it was wrong about her, how many others did we get wrong? The room falls silent, the kind of silence that carries weight. Dr. Ortiz looks to Marisol. Ms. Thorne, would you like to speak? Marisol rises slowly. She's wearing her best dress, simple navy blue, the one she wore to her daughter's last birthday party before everything fell apart. Her hands are steady. Her voice is quiet, but it fills every corner of the room. NeuroPure measures everything: heart rate variability, cortisol levels, neural activation patterns, micro-expressions. It quantifies grief and calculates risk. It sees silence and calls it pathology. It sees tears and calls it disorder. She pauses, letting the words settle. I see silence and call it pain. I see tears and call them human. I see a mother crying because she's afraid of losing her child. And I see love. Not instability. Love. She looks at Serafina now. Not with hatred, not with anger, with something harder to bear, understanding. Your system can't measure hope. It can't measure why someone keeps going when all the data says they should break. It can't measure the reason people choose to live. It can't measure what makes a life worth living. Her voice softens but doesn't waver. I don't hate you, Dr. Quill. I think I understand you better than you know. You built a cage out of numbers because the world hurt you, because loss felt too big to carry, so you tried to make it smaller, to contain it, to control it. Tears gather in Marisol's eyes but don't fall. But cages don't heal anything. They just make the pain more organized. They don't eliminate suffering. They just make us suffer alone. Serafina's breath catches audibly. Her carefully maintained composure fractures. Harlan stands, his presence solid beside Marisol. I built NeuroPure to eliminate human error, to make medicine objective, to remove bias, to ensure that feelings wouldn't cloud judgment. He looks directly at Serafina. But in trying to remove human error, we created something worse. We created a system that could be manipulated by the very biases we claimed to eliminate. A system that could be used to justify any conclusion if you had the right access codes. He turns to the board. Technology is only as trustworthy as the humans behind it, and it's only as good as the values we embed in it. We forgot that. I forgot that. I was so afraid of feelings that I built a system that punished people for having them. His voice drops, intimate and raw. But she didn't forget. Marisol didn't forget that pain is part of healing, that grief is the price of love, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is keep your heart open when the world tells you to shut it down. He looks at Marisol, and something passes between them. Gratitude, respect, and the beginning of something deeper. That's the only reason my son is still here. Not the technology, her courage, her refusal to let a machine tell her who she was allowed to be. The board members exchange glances, whispered consultation. But before Dr. Ortiz can speak, Serafina stands abruptly. Her chair scrapes against the floor, the sound sharp and final. Her hands shake. Her voice cracks. The clinical mask falls away completely. "I tried to save my son from pain," she says, barely above a whisper. The room leans in collectively to hear. 20 years ago. Elias. He was 7. Her eyes glisten, reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights. He complained of headaches, fatigue, minor things. 3 doctors missed it. They said it was stress, growth pains, nothing to worry about. By the time they found the tumor, it had spread. Inoperable. A tear escapes, tracking down her cheek. She doesn't wipe it away. "I watched my boy die over 6 months because doctors didn't look carefully enough at the data, because they trusted their instincts instead of the evidence, because they let their feelings, their exhaustion, their distraction, their assumption that children don't get brain cancer, cloud their judgment." Her voice breaks completely. "So I built a system that would never miss anything. I turned every symptom into a data point, every emotion into a risk factor, every deviation from normal into a potential catastrophe." She looks at her hands, as if seeing them for the first time. "I turned pain into an enemy. I made emotion the problem. I thought if I could eliminate uncertainty, I could eliminate loss." She raises her eyes to Marisol, and they're swimming with tears. "But I was wrong. I took your daughter because I was terrified of what I couldn't measure, because love looked too much like risk, because I couldn't tell the difference between caring too much and being unstable, so I called it all dangerous." Her voice drops to a whisper. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Pain isn't the enemy. Pain is how people remember each other. It's proof that love existed. It's proof that something mattered enough to leave a scar." The silence in the room is absolute, profound. Dr. Ortiz clears her throat, her own eyes suspiciously bright. "Dr. Quill, your medical license is suspended pending full review. NeuroPure's diagnostic protocols will be independently audited by a team of ethicists, clinicians, and patient advocates. All diagnoses made or modified by your hand will be reviewed for potential harm." She pauses, her voice gentling slightly. "I recommend you seek the support you clearly need. This hearing is adjourned." The gavel falls. Serafina doesn't move. She stares at her hands, the hands that programmed algorithms, altered records, tried to redesign grief into something manageable, and failed spectacularly. Then, slowly, she looks at Marisol one more time. "I hope you get her back. Your daughter. I hope she knows how lucky she is." Marisol nods once, her own throat too tight for words. "I hope you find your way back, too, to who you were before the world broke you." Serafina's expression shifts, something between gratitude and devastation, between hope and despair. She nods once, then rises and leaves, her lawyer trailing behind her like a shadow. The press erupts outside, questions shouted, cameras flashing. Inside the now empty hearing room, Harlan exhales, long, shaky, like he's been holding his breath for a year. The city noise filters in through the windows. Car horns, distant voices, construction somewhere, life grinding forward with or without permission. Marisol touches his arm gently. You did the right thing. He looks at her, really looks at her, and sees not just the woman who saved his son, but the woman who's teaching him how to be human again. I should have done it sooner. You did it when it mattered. That's what counts. And in that moment, under the fluorescent buzz of the courthouse hall, surrounded by the debris of his broken certainty, something passes between them. Not just gratitude, not just respect, something warmer, something tentative and real and worth protecting. The beginning of something neither of them expected to find in the ruins of their separate devastations. Outside, through the frosted glass, reporters swarm. But in here, in this small pocket of quiet, they stand together. And it feels like the beginning of healing. 2 months later, early morning light streams through the windows of the villa, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. The house looks different now, not just because of the open curtains or the vase of sunflowers on the kitchen counter or the children's artwork taped haphazardly to the refrigerator with magnets shaped like letters. It looks different because it's lived in. Because there's a coffee mug left on the counter, still half full. Because there are shoes by the door. Small ones and medium ones and large ones all jumbled together. Because there's laughter echoing from upstairs, and the smell of pancakes burning slightly, and the sound of someone singing off-key in the shower. It looks like a home. Marisol is in Kai's room, folding clothes into neat piles on his bed. She's gotten good at knowing which shirts are his favorites, which pants are too scratchy, which socks don't have seams that bother him. Understanding his needs doesn't require an algorithm. Just attention. Just care. The doorbell chimes. She wipes her hands on her jeans and heads downstairs, expecting a package or maybe a neighbor. Instead, there's just a small cream-colored envelope on the doormat. No return address, no postage. Hand-delivered. She picks it up, something in her chest tightening with recognition. Inside, a handwritten note on expensive stationery. The handwriting is careful, precise, like someone who's spent years making their emotions illegible and is only now learning to write clearly again. Elias smiled today. Really smiled. He asked me why the sky is blue, and I didn't have an answer from the research. And it felt good. Not knowing felt good. Being wrong felt like being alive again. I started seeing a therapist. She's helping me understand that data isn't truth. It's just information. That numbers can't tell you what matters. That I built a fortress out of equations because I was afraid of feeling anything. Thank you for reminding me that not knowing is okay. Thank you for showing me there's still light, even after everything goes dark. Thank you for proving that the most important things can't be measured. I hope your daughter knows how lucky she is. I hope you know how brave you are. S. No signature. But Marisol knows. She folds the note carefully, something warm and complicated unfurling in her chest. Forgiveness, maybe. Or just the recognition that people can change, that even the most lost can find their way back if someone leaves a light on. Footsteps thunder behind her. Marisol! She turns just in time to brace herself as Kai crashes into her at full speed, arms wrapping around her waist in the kind of hug that's all enthusiasm and no technique. Mama, he shouts, breathless and bright-eyed. Mama, what did the letter say? Mama. The word still catches her off guard sometimes, still makes her throat tight and her eyes sting. It took 3 weeks after she officially moved in before he said it the first time, whispered into her shoulder during a thunderstorm. Now he says it casually, like it's the most natural thing in the world. Maybe it is. She kneels down, cupping his face in her hands. His cheeks are slightly sticky, probably from sneaking syrup from the pancakes Harlan is attempting to make. It's said that sometimes the most lost people find light where they were most afraid to look. Kai thinks about this with the seriousness he brings to everything. His brow furrows. Like us? Yeah, sweetheart. Like us. He grins, gap-toothed and completely unguarded, and hugs her again before racing back toward the kitchen, shouting something about pancakes being on fire. Harlan appears in the hallway a moment later, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly disheveled, a dusting of flour somehow in his eyebrows. He looks nothing like the controlled, precise man who interviewed her 2 months ago. He looks more human now, more real. More like someone who's learning that perfection is overrated and messy is often better. "Everything okay?" he asks, concern flickering across his face. She stands, showing him the note. He reads it slowly, his expression shifting through several emotions before settling on something soft and sad and hopeful. "She's healing," he says quietly. "Maybe. I hope so. Everyone deserves the chance to heal." He steps closer, his hand finding the small of her back. It's an easy gesture now, protective, affectionate, earned through slow weeks of learning each other's rhythms and boundaries and fears. Physical touch that isn't measured or monitored or logged in a database. Just human contact, just warmth. "Kai's asking about the park," Harlan says, a smile tugging at his lips. "Something about flying a kite? He drew a picture of it this morning. Very elaborate plans involving strings and wind patterns." Marisol laughs. "He gets that from you, the elaborate planning. And the enthusiasm from you. Good. He needs both." They share a look, one of those married couple looks that communicates volumes without words. Not that they're married, not yet. But the possibility hangs in the air between them, gentle and patient and inevitable. "Then let's go fly that kite," Marisol says. Later that afternoon, the 4 of them are together in the park. Zephyr arrived 3 weeks ago. Marisol's daughter, finally, after months of legal proceedings and custody evaluations, and a judge who actually listened instead of just reading reports. 8 years old now, with braids adorned with colorful beads that click when she moves, with laughter like music, with her mother's eyes and her mother's stubborn courage. The custody hearing was different this time. The judge reviewed the original NeuroPure assessment with a forensic psychologist present, saw the audit trail showing the manipulation, saw the corrected records, saw the evidence of healing, not in data points, but in photographs and letters and testimony from neighbors and Kai's pediatrician and Harlan himself, who stood up in court and said clearly, "This woman saved my son's life. She's the most stable, loving, courageous person I've ever met." The judge returned custody immediately. Temporary at first, then permanent. And Zephyr came home. Now, in the kitchen of the villa that's become theirs, Zephyr helps Kai make sandwiches for the park. Peanut butter slathered unevenly, jelly dripping onto the counter, bread torn in places from enthusiastic spreading. Harlan leans against the doorframe, watching this small domestic chaos with something like wonder on his face. A year ago, his house was silent, sterile, controlled. Now it's loud and messy and full of life. Marisol slides her hand into his. "You okay?" He nods, swallowing against sudden emotion. "Better than okay." "Scared?" "Terrified," he admits with a small laugh. "But in a good way." She squeezes his hand. "That's called being alive." He looks at her, this woman who saw his worst creation and still chose to stay. This woman who taught his son to laugh again. This woman who's teaching him that control isn't the same as safety, that data isn't the same as truth, that love is the most powerful force in the universe, precisely because it can't be measured or predicted or controlled. "I love you," he says. The words come easier now, though they're still new enough to make his heart race. "I know it's fast, and I know we're still figuring this out, but—" "I know," she interrupts gently. "I love you too." They kiss. Soft, brief, real. The kind of kiss that doesn't demand anything. The kind that just offers. Connection without condition. Love without measurement. "Gross!" Kai yells from the kitchen, and Zephyr giggles into her hands. Marisol laughs. Fully, openly, the kind of laugh that fills a house with light. And the sound wraps around Harlan like a blanket. Like home. "Come on," she says, tugging his hand. "Let's go fly that kite before they eat all the sandwiches." They gather supplies. The kite Kai designed with Zephyr's help. Sandwiches wrapped in foil, a blanket, water bottles, sunscreen. The ordinary logistics of family life. The beautiful mundane details that don't need algorithms. Just people. Just love. Just showing up. The park is golden in the afternoon light. That particular quality of autumn sunshine that makes everything look like a painting. Trees sway gently, their leaves rustling in the breeze. Some still green, some gold, some already fallen and crunching underfoot. Laughter echoes from the playground nearby. Somewhere, a dog barks joyfully. Children shout and chase each other through fallen leaves. Life, messy and beautiful and unmeasured. Kai and Zephyr race across the open field, their voices bright and clear, competing to see who can run faster. In Kai's hands, a kite, red and yellow, shaped like a dragon, its tail streaming behind in ribbons of color. It's the one they built together last weekend, all four of them sitting on the living room floor surrounded by paper and string and glue, arguing good-naturedly about the best design. "Higher!" Zephyr shouts, running beside him, her braids flying. "I'm trying," Kai laughs, tugging the string, his whole face alight with concentration and joy. The kite wobbles, dips, then catches the wind properly. It rises, soars, climbs toward the endless blue. Both children whoop with triumph. On a bench some distance away, Harlan sits alone, watching, smiling softly. He's learned to do this, to give space, to let joy happen without trying to measure it, document it, analyze it, to just witness it and let that be enough. He's learned a lot in 2 months. Marisol walks across the grass toward him, 2 ice cream cones in hand, navigating carefully to keep them from dripping. The October sun catches in her hair, turning her into something luminous. She sits beside him, passes him one. "Chocolate, your favorite." "You remembered." "I remember everything." She says it lightly, but it's true. She remembers the way he takes his coffee, the fact that he hates talking before breakfast, that he gets a small crease between his eyebrows when he's thinking hard, that he touches his wedding ring, the one he finally took off 3 weeks ago, when he's nervous. She remembers because that's what love is, attention, witness, care. They sit in comfortable silence, watching the children play. The kite dances against the blue sky, wild and free and beautiful, a dragon made of paper and hope, defying gravity through nothing but wind and determination. Kai turns, waving frantically. "Dad, look! Look how high!" Harlan waves back, his smile widening until it aches in the best way. "I see you, buddy. That's amazing!" Something in his chest loosens. Something he didn't know was clenched. "I see you." When was the last time he really saw Kai? Not the data, not the diagnosis, not the symptoms or the behaviors or the measurable markers. Just Kai, his son. This small person who's teaching him that the most important things can't be quantified. Marisol leans her head on his shoulder. He wraps his arm around her, pulling her closer. "Thank you," he says quietly. For what? For not giving up. On him. On me. On the possibility that broken things can be repaired. She turns, meeting his eyes. Hers are warm, brown, infinite. You made it easy. I really didn't. No, she admits, smiling. You really didn't. You were stubborn and emotionally constipated and so wrapped up in your data that you couldn't see what was right in front of you. He laughs, surprised and delighted by her honesty. Tell me how you really feel. But you were worth it, she continues, her voice softening. Because under all that, you were just a scared person trying to survive the worst thing that ever happened to you. And I understood that. They kiss again. Longer this time. Warmer. Full of promise and patience and all the messy, unmeasurable things that make a life worth living. Full of the future they're building together, one imperfect day at a time. When they pull apart, Zephyr is standing right in front of them, hands on her hips in a perfect imitation of Marisol's stance. Gross, she says, but she's grinning. Very gross, Kai agrees, appearing beside her, both of them breathless and wind-blown and happy. Can we get ice cream? Zephyr asks. You're literally holding my ice cream, Marisol points out. No, I mean our ice cream, our own cones. Harlan laughs. Absolutely. What kind do you want? Strawberry, Zephyr decides immediately. Cookies and cream, Kai announces. They start walking toward the ice cream truck parked near the playground, the children racing ahead, their excited chatter floating back on the breeze. Marisol and Harlan follow more slowly, hands linked, comfortable in the space between words. Zephyr said something this morning, Marisol says softly. She asked if this was her house now. Not yours. Not mine. Ours. Harlan stops walking. Looks at her. What did you say? I said yes, if that's okay. His throat tightens. His eyes sting slightly. More than okay. She squeezes his hand. She also asked if you were going to be her dad now. What did you tell her? I said that's up to her, that there's no rush, that families can be built lots of ways, and they're all real if the love is real. Harlan is quiet for a long moment, watching Kai and Zephyr chase each other in circles, their laughter bright and unguarded. I'd like that, he says finally. To be her dad, if you want. I know I'm not. I know I'm still learning how to do this, how to be present instead of measuring everything, but... Marisol turns, placing her hand on his chest, right over his heart. You're learning. That's what matters. And yeah, I want that. I want all of this. The messy, complicated, beautiful all of it. They stand like that for a moment. 4 people in a park, stitched together from loss and choice and stubborn grace. A family not by algorithm or design, but by the slow, patient work of learning to trust again. Learning that love isn't something you control. It's something you choose every day in 1,000 small ways. The sun dips lower, casting long shadows that blend into one. The kite flies higher, a dragon against the endless sky. And the world, for this moment, is kind. If this story moved you, please like this video and subscribe for more heartwarming stories that remind us. Kindness changes everything. We all carry pain. We all have systems that failed us, algorithms that got us wrong, moments when we felt reduced to numbers on a screen. But we also have the power to choose differently, to see the person behind the data, to hear the voice behind the silence, to remember that hearts are not errors waiting to be corrected. They're the most powerful, most motivational force in the universe. If you've ever felt broken by a system that couldn't see you, know this: you are not your diagnosis. You are not your worst moment. You are not the sum of your data points. You are human. You are whole. You are worth more than any algorithm will ever understand. Thank you for listening. Until next time, take care of each other. And remember, healing is never a straight line, but every step forward matters. Every choice to love matters. Every moment of courage matters. You matter.